call to order the April 16th Board of Health meeting. And we'll stand to start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Good April to everyone. It's almost spring, or it feels like almost spring, right? Okay, we're getting there. And go Villanova! What a great time for the Township with the Cats winning again. All right. So we'll start off by reviewing the March meeting minutes, and if anybody had a chance to look at those yet, any changes, updates, misspellings? Seeing nothing from the panel here, I'll just ask for a motion to approve these.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Nancy. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of the minutes being approved, aye? Aye. Any nays? Okay, so we'll approve the minutes, and they'll be appear on the website. Thank you. If we can move to the health officer's report. Marie, are you giving that today? Thank you.
Good evening. So we had 36 food safety inspections completed. Vinny's Pizza and Buena Vista are now open. We did 9 indoor pool inspections, and our outdoor pool season is approaching, so our applications went out to renew their annual license. So community events, Villanova is hosting a Spring Out Healthy Happy Hour, April 28th. Wheels of Wayne, that Heather will talk more about, is taking place April 29th. There's a 5K at St. Catherine of Siena, and this Wednesday, April 18th, as you know, the many emails I sent out, I apologize for. The Radnor Police Department is putting on an active shooter and safe school symposium this Wednesday at 7. 9 public health complaints came into our department. One of the issues was a confirmed case of Lyme disease and anaplasmosis from a resident. Those diseases were reported to the Department of Health, and it was also reported to me that deer culling did take place earlier this year. The school district reached out to our department looking to discuss introducing a school hotline for parents, caregivers, and students. One of the programs they mentioned is called Safe School Helpline. So they basically offer like mental health counselors 24/7. Students can report by the web, by an app. Parents can report. I do have more information available if anybody's interested, and if the board has any thoughts or ideas or any experiences with any of those programs, you know, we welcome you to share those via email with us. Lastly, we had a workplace safety meeting on April 4th where we discussed the possibility of supplying all the inspectors in Community Development Department with CO monitoring devices. Thank you.
Good stuff. At some point, Marie, I'll get to talk to you about that information. I'd like to just look at that. I'm not real familiar with the program, but that sounds like something I'd be interested in.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Just going over some old business. I don't know if there's any more chicken news. I haven't heard anything yet from the Board of Commissioners or from the Planning Department about anything further they want from us. So I don't think there's really any big chicken news. But get some information.
Can I just mention,
Sure.
in the news, the salmonella outbreak? It's a great example of what we were talking about with salmonella being rampant in the large egg producers. So again, perfect reason why it would be good for people to be able to raise their own chickens so they won't have to deal with salmonella.
Absolutely. And I think we've all seen many documentaries about these massive farms, and you know, when there's an outbreak of these bacteria, it's affecting many, many more people than it would if everybody's producing their own and you know, maintaining probably a much healthier environment for the chickens. Okay. As far as presentations go, I believe that you're going to be presenting in May?
Yes, I'm going to do a 10-minute presentation on vaping.
Terrific.
And what it's all about. So I wanted to get some feedback from anyone that has any questions or ideas or things that they want me to address, because I started to do some reading this afternoon on it. So is there anything the board would like to know, or facts on vaping? Our high schoolers, any questions about it or anything you want to know?
All I know is that just it's becoming a very important topic within the school community. Mr. Bechtel, our principal, is doing a very good job of making various assemblies to spread the dangers of vaping. I think that that type of presentation would definitely come in handy.
When you say popular topic, so he's doing, did he do a presentation recently?
There's been posters going up around the school about the dangers of vaping, and he also, there are school officials going into bathrooms and checking, because a lot of boys tend to vape in the restrooms. So they've been doing checks, but besides that, I don't know.
Yeah, I was interested in that. I was wondering where the kids were doing it exactly when I started to read on this, if it was on a high school grounds or middle school grounds or in the bathrooms, that sort of thing. So, all right, anything of interest that you can think of that you want to know about?
I mean, I guess just what are the specific dangers of vaping compared to regular cigarettes?
Okay. Okay, good. All right, thank you. Anybody else?
I think it would be useful to know what restrictions exist for accessing the supplies.
I do have an article from the New York Times from, I think it was this week, about a specific brand of vape that's been very popular with teens. And I'll give you this article to take with you, read. I printed this up today.
Thank you.
And it's appeared in some of the pediatric news feeds because of the popularity of this device. It's sort of stealth, and just a quick, quick survey of schools where in New York where this article was written. When they would go to bathrooms to check the bathrooms, they would find a lot of these devices. So it's an interesting article about the Juul.
Thank you very much.
Just one question as well. We all know that secondhand smoke is bad, but secondhand vaping, so, because it is, I guess, maybe it's water-based, yeah,
that's definitely true. When I did, a cursory read today, it definitely mentioned the passive, people breathing that in, and there is a small amount of nicotine and then all this vaporized chemical stuff. So I'll definitely address that as well. Good
Yeah.
point.
I would like to know about the chemical composition and also about the epidemiology of it, how prevalent and what age groups. I was talking to my daughter about the issue of cigarettes outdoors, and she said in her school, it's really a non-issue. The kids in her school the kids in her class don't really smoke. She said, but vaping is really big. And so she felt that vaping in the township is a big issue.
Yeah, I think it's a big issue, and I think it's one that we didn't grow up with, I think. So it's the other thing, I think, in just being around the PTO, I think maybe we should extend an email. This is a great opportunity for parents to come and learn a lot about it. I've talked to many parents in the high school and the middle school that really don't know a lot about this. So not only educating the kids on what the dangers are as sort of decision makers and making choices, but also the parents so they can have, conversations with their children about this because I think many of us just don't know enough about how to educate our children about the dangers of it. So if we could extend that out, I'm happy to forward that to the PTO of the middle school, which will then get out to the other schools as well. And probably middle and high school would be the most appropriate.
Great feedback. All right, thank you very much. I'm glad I asked. So, yeah, so if I'll send the information along to Dr. Foreman, and we'll reach out to you. So I know Kevin's not here tonight, so I could also CC him as well.
Is there a June, do we have a June meeting? Yes, okay, we do have a June meeting. I couldn't remember. It's the two off is July and August. I've only done this for 8 years. So the students, you guys will present your topics in June. Is that okay? That's great. Like
Sounds
2-3
good.
minute presentation, just kind of tell us what you've done. That's a thumbs up or sideways?
Gotcha. Well,
Okay.
sounds good, yes.
Sounds good, thank you. So we can plan the rest of our year out because there's no July and August meeting. Okay, great. Well, that's easy. So kind of going through this this vaping talk. The last meeting we did have a request from the Board of Commissioners to talk a little bit about the smoking policy in the township, outdoor smoking policy, specifically outdoor in restaurants and parks. And then through the email over the last month, we have kind of been bopping back and forth a couple of ideas from board members. And I think we should just kind of relay our thoughts to the public about our thoughts about these issues. I think there was kind of a pro and a con in the email, which was interesting. Sort of staying, how much regulation should we have for safety, and how dangerous really is outdoor smoke to people, to the secondhand smoking, and how annoying is it, or how difficult is it to sit down and have a meal and have that waft of smoke kind of passing by at all times. So if you guys would just chip in for a few seconds with your opinions, so the township can hear our opinions on this, and we'll have to decide as a board if we're going to give an actual formal consensus agreement to the Board of Commissioners about our thoughts on this. And they've also apparently have thrown this over to the Parks Commission as well for their thoughts on the parks and smoking and vaping policies. So anybody want to start and chime in? I think that Joan had a couple of great thoughts, and Mr. Wheeler did too, and Nancy.
Of course, I am opposed to smoking. I feel like if we ban it in public property, on public property in our township, it'll drive people right across the street into folks' yards, around the parks, yards and driveways. I don't think that it would eliminate the problem. I think it would drive it literally off our property. And we've seen that in the neighborhood before in other instances.
I think it's a hard topic to balance people's individual rights and then the collective rights of the community. And I think everybody on the board realizes that there's major health impacts with smoking. And then there's the practical side, and I think that's been well pointed out in the emails that have come out about a well-intentioned policy that can lead to unintended consequences of people on other people's property. I think the problem, though, is, and I'd like to hear everyone else's thoughts on this, is if you go out to lunch or a brunch on Sunday morning and you have a 8-month-old child in a stroller outside with you, that 8-month-old can't really decide to move or not move, and then there's smoking going on at the next table, even though it's an outdoor thing. I mean, how do we balance the rights of that situation and similar types of situations? So it gets hard. So I think I'm in favor of enforcing, for the most part, non-smoking, aggressive rules, but maybe within reason to allow designated smoking areas where there wouldn't be easy access to places, or areas that we felt with the park's input would be difficult to accommodate people, without them driving into other people's driveways or other property. So, a more granular look at each area. I know that's a lot of work, but perhaps that's what we need to do to balance, all of those unintended consequences. But I think, at least from my perspective as a board member, I think we have to take at least I feel like I have to take a very strong position, against smoking in public areas. But that's, obviously my personal opinion.
I mean, similarly, I have similar feelings, and I think that when I thought about this a bit with the parks, I mean, it's not only a smoking issue as far as the fumes and the making other people, quote unquote, have health health issues from the secondhand smoke, but it's also the matter of children seeing people smoking everywhere, the trash, the butts, having trash facilities, and as you've seen before, people throwing butts into a trash can and having little smoky fires going and things like this. Could there be a section or an area where it's sort of allowed, so it doesn't filter over like at the hospitals where it's banned all over the campus, and we just see groups of people in scrubs sitting at the corner of Bryn Mawr and Haverford and having their afternoon cigarette smoked by a dumpster.
I'm wearing my scrubs, so I just
Sorry,
want to
not
make
you.
sure I'm not a smoker.
No. So maybe there could be some sort of place or area that the Parks Commission could think of. And the other thing that I was sort of thinking was, when is the discomfort, for me personally, sitting outside having dinner somewhere in Wayne, and there's a table where there's folks smoking, and that kind of cloud sort of hits you the whole meal. Is it possible to say, we're not banning township smoking as you're walking by buildings or as you leave your office to take a break because you can't smoke indoors, but sitting at a restaurant, is that possible to restrict the smoking while you're sitting down to have a meal at a restaurant? So again, just the thoughts that I had over reading these emails from everybody.
I think the issue of commercial establishments is interesting, and I think that before we even made a decision on that, I think we'd absolutely have to poll the restaurants because it affects their business. And if they do feel that they have smokers and that would interfere with the comfort of their guests, I think that's something that they should be able to weigh in on. My sense is that they wouldn't really care, but I think we should know that before making a decision. As far as people eating out and having smoke blowing in their faces, I mean, that's a personal choice. If you don't like it, you don't have to go to a restaurant, or you can go to a different restaurant, or you could move the baby. I mean, I think there's some choice involved. The studies that I read pretty much established that over 6 feet, the air concentration, the particulate concentration is a non-issue, a complete non-issue. I think the biggest thing is maybe people wouldn't like the way it looks. It's a personal right that we're talking about taking away. And I'm not a smoker, never been a smoker. I don't have smokers in my family, and I'd be horrified if my kids smoked. So I'm not pro-smoking. I don't like it. But I think, the whole issue of taking away people's rights is huge. It's been huge with guns and everything else. And I think we hesitate to take away certain rights that truly do make things dangerous for people. And then we look at these things that I consider relatively innocuous, like smoking outside. But I think before we even considered making any sort of change, the saying, if it's not broken, don't fix it, I want to know how many people in this township even smoke. I don't see people smoking. I don't think it's worth taking away the rights of the very minuscule few people who smoke in the township for something that's not really bothering anybody. I don't think it's anything, I think we should do studies. I think that cigarette butts in the park should be counted. I think we should quantify things. I think the trash cans in the parks should be emptied, cigarette butts counted. So how many people are actually smoking in the parks, throwing away cigarette butts? That's a good way to measure it. But I don't think that we should be making rules without knowing what we're dealing with. Somebody brought up an interesting point of, not directly health-related as far as particulate matter in the air, which is what I brought up in my email, but is somebody smoking in a park going to make kids want to smoke in the parks? And I absolutely think no, but I backed it up by doing some research. So what makes kids want to smoke, and this is an NCBI study, are family history, and that includes family structure, relationship with parents, kids who have young parents, abuse in the home, that's one thing. Second thing is companionship issues, peer groups. The third is personal issues. And the fourth is psychosocial. So another study showed parents, number 1, 2, quality of the parent-teen relationship, 3, type of parental discipline, 4, income slash education of the family, 5, school level factors. So certainly there's a lot of education that can be happening in the schools, which makes a whole lot more difference than somebody walking through a park with a cigarette. And another factor, which I didn't even think of, is concerns about weight gain. So I think probably maybe girls might, you know, who want to lose weight might be taking up cigarettes instead of gaining weight as a way to lose weight. The other thing is I think we should certainly comply with what the state's doing, and in very few state parks, mainly ones with beaches, they don't limit smoking in the state of Pennsylvania. And in Disney World, you can smoke in Disney World, outdoors. They have tents, they have specific areas, but you know, Disney's not worried about kids being corrupted by seeing people in these designated smoking areas with, you know, that are sort of separated and smoke billowing out. They're not concerned. But I just really, I think it's a non-issue. And I think that there are, it puts a great enforcement burden on the police. I don't think they have time for this amongst all the other stuff that they're doing. And other ways that we could, you know, could deal with this better is school programs. There could be specific rules about teens smoking outside, if that's what we're worried about, the teens. And also, you know, if we're going to take it away from the parks and outdoor areas, maybe we should make it illegal in the stores. How far are we going to go? Maybe stores shouldn't sell cigarettes in Radnor Township. If we're going to really take a stand, we should go all the way. But there are certainly a lot of other vices in the township that corrupt minors that I think are much greater than cigarettes. And I think if we're going to do that, we have to look at things like kids walking with phones in their hands, profanity, kids spitting. I mean, the attire that the kids wear. How far are we going to go? I think it can really get a little out there. So I don't think we should touch cigarettes outdoors. That's my personal opinion.
Okay, I'm not a smoker, never have been a smoker, and nobody smokes in our household or in our house. So I'm not a fan of cigarettes. The costs to society, the dangers to society, the harm to health. But I do think it is going way too far if we try to stop people smoking outdoors in public parks where the health evidence just doesn't seem to be there. And as for setting bad example, I really don't think we can intrude on people's privacy or rights to the extent that we say no smoking in public parks, given there's no real evidence to suggest that it's a health hazard. And as for restaurants, well, I think somebody said, you know, if you're sitting outside on a restaurant in Wayne, the passing cars are doing you a lot more harm than any cigarettes. And I do think we should leave it to the proprietors of the restaurants to decide whether or not they're going to allow their customers to smoke on the terraces. If people don't like it, they will vote with their wallets and their feet and will stay away. And to the point about the poor child in the stroller, I think that's a parent's right to take the child and move elsewhere to protect the child. So it does all seem way too Orwellian to me to start saying that we're going to put limits on smoking outside on patios at restaurants, and even more so outside in public parks. So I would be very much against moving forward with any kind of legislation.
I certainly support the idea of doing everything we can to make our children's health.
Wow. I support the idea of doing everything we can to make our children's health better. And I have some concerns about the individual rights and all that too, but in a way that's kind of what's gotten us in the boxes. I think I mentioned with issues of guns and all that other stuff, which is way beyond the pale of what we're talking about now. I think the idea of conducting some studies to see what kind of issue we're really dealing with makes some sense rather than just sort of going on gut feel. And I'm also a little concerned that we're nickel and diming this. You know, cigarettes in a public park is one thing, but does the township have any kind of comprehensive ordinance or policy about using any kind of noxious product in public? You know, I'm coming from a public policy background in the 90s when, you know, the phrase alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs was thrown around with great popularity. It kind of lumped everything in together. There's a certain amount of sense to that, but you know, I'm not at all convinced that we've got people getting drunk in playgrounds or whatever. You know, at least in Radnor Township, most drunks are more subtle. We certainly have our share of them, but that's another matter. But I think I would certainly support the idea of finding out just how big an issue we're really dealing with here before we make any kind of decision. I like Nancy's suggestion of confining them to the dumpsters, but that's probably not very practical either.
I think that there's, I certainly respect people's right to choose how they want to live their life, and I don't think the Board of Health has a right to tell someone not to smoke. But I do think there's a distinction between that and going to a restaurant in downtown Wayne and you're not able to control the distance between the tables, and you're choosing to go out to whatever meal with your family, and the person next to you is choosing to smoke. You're not able to make that choice for your family to be exposed to that or not. Whether it's dangerous or not, there is some anxiety that's associated with someone next to you, the smoke itself, et cetera, that may not have true science behind it. I fair enough, you know, yield that. But I do think that it would be helpful to hear what the residents think about it, you know, and give them that opportunity to come forward and say, let's hear from the public about their thoughts about it. And then I think, as you pointed out, listening to the proprietors' point of view, as well as the public that are township residents that do smoke. I mean, I think it's very helpful for us to balance the interests of all of those parties when we can hear from them and get sort of the best information from our own township, fellow township residents. So, you know, I obviously have my personal opinion. I'm not sure that we're robbing anybody's right, in my opinion, from asking them to smoke in a designated area that's agreed upon to be a smoking area. I think that's middle ground. And then I think the second thing I'd say is I do think the folks at Disney, having just come back from there not too long ago, I think they do care about the appearance of it. And I think they put those areas actually out of the way of the central traffic. So I do think there's some strategy behind how they set those things up, and trying to still allow people to exercise their rights to smoke, but also weigh that against the public good and the public interest. So I guess the only suggestion I would have here is to allow us to get as much information as we can, gather as much data about township residents' smoking behaviors, but also give the opportunity for the non-smoking resident to come forward and express their concerns about, you know, parks, public areas, and the sort of downtown Wayne area would be the things that I would say. So that's just that's my 2 cents.
You make a good point about people not knowing if they sit down, if somebody's going to, you know, light up at a table nearby. I do think similarly what we have now is people taking their kids to parks and they can't make the choice, and they don't even know if their kids are being exposed to fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, which they are in our parks, because it's not It's not labeled, there are no signs, whereas at least you can see somebody smoking a cigarette and you can make the choice to move, you smell the smoke. But I think at the same time, I think, yeah, I think we should involve the restaurants, and I think maybe restaurants should be, if we do take some sort of middle ground, maybe restaurants should be made to have signage outside that says, this, is an establishment that allows smoking, or maybe a sign that says no smoking establishment, so that parents or anybody can make the choice, like, okay, I'm going to stay away from that one because I don't want to have to deal with taking the risk. So it just empowers people to make the decision that works for them.
Oh, that's a great suggestion.
So just not knowing, I thought all restaurants you weren't allowed to smoke. Is that Lower Merion? Like, I didn't know you could smoke inside a restaurant.
I think we're talking about the
Oh,
outdoors.
outdoors.
We're,
Okay,
we're
just
talking
the
about
outdoor
the
table.
outdoor
Indoors you
patio
cannot.
spaces that come up in the
Okay,
spring
I thought so,
specifically.
just to clarify that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and like downtown Wayne, you know how all the tables come out.
Correct.
You know.
But I also agree, I think you need to know the magnitude or how often it's happening, because I really don't see people smoking that much, so I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. But I would definitely be offended if somebody lit up next to me and started to smoke if I was eating outside, I have to say. And maybe it's a crowded patio restaurant and there's no other place for me to go.
There are always other places to go. And so you come to the point of, do you allow the restaurateur to make the decision that she or he is going to allow or not allow smoking on the patio? And I believe that that is the restaurateur's choice to make, not ours. And if people are so offended by it, and I would be, by the way, I would get up and I would move, and I would not go to a restaurant, to a patio that I knew allowed smoking, but I would rather that the proprietor had the right to make the choice that people are welcome or not welcome to smoke on his or her patio. So my position on it.
Yeah, my position is that in that specific area, that I think the Board of Health has an obligation to the public good. And so I think that there ought to be an opportunity for the public to weigh in on that. Because we all have our own personal opinions about what should and shouldn't be, but I think it's a really important issue. I think that putting the science out there is important too, you know, but I think that I have seen folks you know, walk around events in downtown Wayne, you know, when they do like the Jazz Fest or other things like that, and there'll be people smoking. And so I don't know what the policy is from a township point of view that might be helpful for us to learn, just so we have a very strong foundation of what our current ordinances are in terms of these events and in terms of these other outdoor restaurants, because I honestly, I don't know the answer.
What are we going to do about the cars and trucks that are going up and down South Wayne Avenue? Are we going to stop them as well for as long as there's tables outside, people outside eating and drinking? We're not going to allow them to be exposed to vehicle fumes, which I think the study said will do a heck of a lot more harm than any possible harm that might be done by cigarettes. Where do you stop? Where do you say this is one intrusion too many?
Sorry.
Well, I don't think the exhaust fumes for cars is on the agenda for today, but I think you make a valid point of it being a slippery slope. But I think within this specific nature of smoking, again, it's not telling people they can't smoke. It's just, should we consider designated areas, and what do the township residents feel is in the interest of the public good. So we're certainly, I don't think I'm advocating moving traffic out of the way, but I think considering sensible approaches to limit smoke exposure even in confined outdoor spaces seems something that's worthy of discussion.
Can I chime in here? Thanks. And this is, I mean, I respect both sides of where you're coming from. So no one here smoked, but I did for many years, so I can kind of speak, hopefully, to that of an ex-smoker. Just a couple things. I understand it's a slippery slope. You don't want to breathe any kind of bad fumes. So why breathe one more would be my question. Cars, stuff like that, pesticides, to a certain extent, they have to be regulated. My car, when it gets inspected, has an emissions test. Emissions aren't good, but we do try to limit the amount. So to try to, you know, compare it, I think it's tough to do. I smoked, as I said, for many years, almost 20 years. I look back at it, I do not know one positive thing from cigarette smoking. It was dirty, it's dangerous, it was expensive, and I put other people's health at risk. Not one thing. You could argue cars get you from place to place. Guns, the police carry them, they could be safe. So the list can go on and on and on. But cigarettes, smoking, tobacco, has no redeeming. I mean, unless someone can, you know, you're a shareholder for Philip Morris, has no redeeming value whatsoever, in my opinion. And I can speak to that from experience. But the issue is, you know, we're not taking away anybody's rights. If you want to smoke, you know, you can't smoke in a bar, then drink in your house. You can't smoke outside, then you can't go outside at a patio and do it. You have the right to still smoke in your house. So where do you draw the line? No one's saying not to smoke, just the people that don't smoke. And the children, those that can't advocate for themselves, shouldn't be subject to that. The real issue that I see is it's a public right, sure, but it's public land, so to speak, and it's private property. And then you have ordinances, and where do all three of those intersect? And that's something that I'm sure you could point the finger at each direction and you won't know, and, you know, that would kind of come up maybe, you know, not that it's going to go to court, but, you know, but that would be my guess, is that there's probably a lot of legal, you know, I don't want to say mumbo jumbo, but I don't know where, you know, whose rights is who when it comes to that, but that is almost like a property rights thing. And then in regards to smoking in the park, again, there are children there. Again, I don't see any redeeming value whatsoever. And you'll see, you know, maybe the parents smoke who are in their mid-30s, and then maybe a teenager smokes, and that's cool, or vapes, and then my 10-year-old sees it and thinks that's cool too. So that's a problem. Also, you know, if you can't smoke at home, where are you going to go? The park, because you can smoke in the park, and maybe, you know, you go at Clemacrone in the woods and you do it, and it's a problem. So no one's going to do it outwardly because you're a kid, but that's where that stuff starts. And I don't believe in the idea of gateway drugs, but smoking is extremely, extremely, extremely addictive. Nicotine is extremely, extremely, extremely addictive. I am not a doctor, but they say it's on the level of heroin. Is that correct? Okay. So to allow something like that, and we see a huge heroin epidemic, to allow something like that, and to turn a blind eye, I think, is really, really, really making the wrong call. So I have a very, very strong opinion about this. If you want to smoke, smoke in your house. You know, I mean, 2 feet away from a restaurant, I don't know whose property that is. I don't know who has the right of way, or I don't know the real estate law that would encompass that. I don't know. That is something that I think the board, you know, the Board of Commissioners, and all the way on up to the state, or I don't know where, would need to look at. But I agree. You're not taking away anybody's rights, and you need to advocate for those that can't advocate for themselves. So, again, for me, it is a firm belief that we should not be allowed smoking, definitely in the parks, if not looking at it for beyond. Thanks.
I think not taking away that right is not turning a blind eye. We all agree that it's bad for your health. We know that it's bad for your health. And we also know that something like that, you can't prove a negative, but having kids seeing the occasional person, which there's barely anybody in our township smoking, but if kids see the occasional person with a cigarette, it's not going to influence them to smoke. That's not what influences smoking. We know this from tons and tons of studies. I mean, just research it online. Those aren't the factors. There are lots of factors, from genetic factors to family history to stuff that goes way, it's very, very complex why kids choose to smoke. It's not going to be the random sighting of the rare person smoking in a park. I also think that when you make a rule, and I love rules, I think we have too many rights in this society, so I like taking away rights. This I don't think is one that should be taken away. And I think that when you choose to take or to make any rule, there has to be risk and reward. The risk is you take away a personal right. What's the reward? I don't think the reward is there, especially in our township. I just don't think that, as they say, if it's not broken, don't fix it. I think we need to do more studies, and I certainly respect your opinion as a smoker, not me, as a former smoker. I'm sure it's caused a lot of heartache for you trying to quit. And obviously we don't want kids to get addicted to that. But I think, the other issue, and you mentioned why compare cigarettes to the auto fumes, or why even talk about that in the same sentence? And we should talk about that in the same sentence, because cigarettes, taking cigarettes out of the picture, if you look at all the stuff we're breathing in that we're allowing, especially the optional things that are just completely optional for aesthetic purposes, like all the chemicals that get sprayed in this township and that are allowed to get sprayed by the township and also by individuals. I mean, my neighbor fogs the entire neighborhood with some mosquito control company that comes every other week. I don't like it, but it's allowed. But, you take cigarettes out of the equation, that's like putting out a fire with a water pistol. It's not going to make any difference having cigarettes or not.
So once again, I guess we're going to have to agree to disagree. There are a lot of reasons why people smoke. Coming from experience, I can speak a lot better than what someone reads online, a survey. Sure, they're important, but looking at, a real case and real people, especially someone right here, again, it's so addictive, and it's like heroin, as they say. And all you need is, and people don't start at 18 when it's legal. They start at 12. They steal some from their parents, and before you know it, they have one, they have two. So, and who do you get these from? The bigger kids. Who are the bigger kids? The 15-year-olds if you're 12. And if you're 15, the 18-year-olds. And again, it's not like it's the parents, me, and my dad jeans and my hat that I'm going to have someone smoke. It's some of these kids that are 18 with their friends that are 17 that go buy a pack at Wawa and do it. Again, there is not one redeeming quality, not one, that cigarettes allow, not one. So what you're doing is, again, we'll agree to disagree. You are turning a blind eye on something as powerful and as addictive as heroin that can cause lung cancer and other terrible diseases.
I have a question for the board. I'd just love to hear everybody's opinion. So if at our baseball fields, at the Yankee fields, for example, and I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on this, is how do you feel about allowing smoking at the baseball fields at Yankee Park?
When they're playing a game? Yeah, no, it's absurd. No, I agree.
Same thing. I think it's a little bit unreasonable. We have a lot. That's a situation where you're basically with a lot of children, and it seems like it would be. And I don't know. Is there a sign up there right now in Enki Park that says no smoking?
I don't know. I spent a lot of time there. I should, but I honestly don't know. But
I've
I
never-
just popped in my head because
I've never seen
you go to the games and there might be. I mean, there's a lot of kids sometimes at some of these games,
It seems
and there's
inappropriate.
kids practicing all the time, and we don't really have that I'm aware of from this conversation, an ordinance that says people can't do it. And I'm just curious to know the sort of the temperature of the water, and
Can I-
just on our board
can-
itself.
So when I coached fall ball last year at Enki, someone lit up on the other team a cigarette, and that ump threw him out at Enki B. So he's like, get out. He said, get out, and they made the guy walk to the cross that little trail into the parking lot. No, the kids shouldn't be subject to it. I mean, it's it's about the kids. It's about public health and safety, and that's
Well,
a responsibility.
How do you feel about alcohol then? If Teresa's is full of kids, and there's a bar right there. So, doesn't
But
that fall into the same category?
No,
Why
because the
not?
kids aren't drinking.
But the kids are
But the
watching
kids
adults
aren't
drinking.
No,
But
the
they're
kids-
watching adults drinking.
But the kids aren't
aren't
inhaling a
smoking.
toxic fume.
Kids aren't inhaling fumes
the
from
kids aren't-
somebody who's over 6 feet away. I'm sorry, it's
They are-
insignificant.
Well,
I
That's
think
what
you have to-
secondhand- that's what
you have
secondhand
to
smoke
look-
is.
Secondhand smoke is a word. That's all it is. What is it physiologically? That's all that matters. It's not the word. You can call any secondhand smoke. But if it's not affecting somebody biochemically, physiologically, it is a meaningless word.
So I'll ask the two
And-
doctors, can you get lung cancer from secondhand smoke?
It depends. It
Well,
depends on concentration.
I wouldn't want to.
No,
I don't
it's
want
not a
to
yes
put
or
my
no
kid's
answer.
health.
It's not a
to-
yes or no
I don't
answer
want to put my
as a doctor.
son's. Okay, are you a doctor? Yes. Okay, you're a surgeon or?
Do I have
not
to be a surgeon?
I mean, I'm just you're a.
No, I'm a
you're an MD?
veterinarian.
Okay.
Well,
So my father was a veterinarian too, but animals didn't smoke. So I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to leave my child's health to. It depends. I'm not comfortable with that.
I think there's so much great debate here. I mean, it's a positive debate, and I think everybody's making really good points. And Andy, maybe we could set up a time for for an opportunity for our township folks to come in and ahead of time schedule some time to come in and express their views, and us listen to others as well.
And the restaurant owners as well.
I think that's a great idea.
I think that we are basically, as an advisory board, as a Board of Health, to wrap this healthy debate up, and we do have some other things to get to tonight. We continue to debate this online, but I think the three things that we really need to address here is, one, how much of an issue, like Joan has said, is this for the Park and Rec Commission? Are there a significant amount of butts on the lawn? Are there a significant amount of trash that happens from smoking on our public parks and properties? Number two, do the proprietors in the township have a strong opinion on this? Is this really, would they think it would affect their business? Obviously, in the past 10 or so years, when smoking was banned completely indoors in bars and restaurants in the state of Pennsylvania, and in most states across the country, there was some input from proprietors about how this would affect their business, and I'm sure many businesses at some time were extraordinarily upset with this because they thought it would affect their business greatly. I don't think bars have really gone into the realm of history because of the ban, but at all. But it is important for us to include our business people in the community. And this circles back to a few years ago when I started on the board. We did debate this issue as well, and I did hand out some surveys to local business owners and didn't get many responses back, but I think we could probably do a better job than I did a few years back. And third, the residents' input, certainly something that we could do as a board, putting this on either the website or on the TV screen to see if we can get some input from people on what their thoughts are on this as well. I don't think there's really a lot of power that we have as the Board of Health to really affect change other than just give our opinions, and I think our opinions are being heard tonight, and we can continue to debate this over email over the next month and then speak a little bit more about it in May. So we can get to a consensus or not of what we want to make a suggestion for this issue.
And I'd like to add, is there any kind of policy or something that we have in the bylaws or something that we could refer to regarding smoking indoor, outdoor. I don't know if
Take a look,
anything like
yeah,
that
see if there's
exists.
anything else. I mean, online, there's certainly a lot of bylaws. I've had a hard time searching through them and figuring things out, but maybe we could also figure some bylaws.
And
or rules.
can we make real clear whether we're talking about a trash issue or a health issue? You're talking about cigarette butts and, obnoxious things, messy things. I'd like to make a distinction between two separate issues there.
All right. I know that there's certainly signs at the beaches in New Jersey that say this is a non-smoking beach, so signage doesn't seem like a real difficult thing to implement. But again, let's leave that to the details later and continue this debate. Thank you, everybody. We do want to move to new business. I did invite a guest tonight to speak, so I'm going to get her up immediately so she can speak because she's been waiting a while. If you can come to the podium for us, please, that'd be great. We did invite the rec department to give us a quick presentation of some of the things that are available through Radnor Township Recreation and Community Programming Department for the summer of 2018. Always a great programs that they provide.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? I'm Heather DeCanzi. I'm the Recreation Program Supervisor. And I had just given you a handout of all of our upcoming summer camps and events. But of course, we do programming year-round. And one of the big things that we'd like to share with you, of course, are our community events. Just kind of based off of the discussion you just had, it's a great way to reach the members of our community. Our upcoming event we actually was rescheduled from 2 weeks ago. It was our spring extravaganza. It's our annual Easter egg hunt. It's at Villanova University. It was supposed to be 2 weeks ago, and then we had terrible weather. And so even though we're a couple weeks after Easter, we're still having an Easter egg hunt, and that'll be this Sunday, April 22nd at Villanova. So all of our events, the Board of Health and any of our other organizations here in the township are more than welcome to come and attend, share information, reach people in the public. It might be short notice for this event, but we also then have Wheels of Wayne coming up on April 29th. Of course, that one takes place all along North Wayne and West Avenue in downtown Wayne. Again, it might be a great way for you to reach some members in our community. You could even hand out, questionnaires or have people sign up on an interest list to have a questionnaire emailed to them. But we would be able to provide you with the table and chairs, or if you have information you'd like us to have at our own table if no one's able to attend on your behalf, we can do that as well. I think, Nancy, you attended our event the pumpkin patch event, right? Yes. So that's always an open invitation, and if you ever have questions about how you'd like to participate in our events, please just reach out to us. Specific to summer, which is what I was invited to speak about specifically, we have a number of camps that we do every year. Radnor Day Camp's, of course, our biggest one. This is our 77th year that we're having Radnor Day Camp, which is a huge milestone. And then in addition to that, we have a number of specialty camps. Our Survivor Nature hiking camp is one of our most popular. It's all outdoors at the Willows Park. We also have Harry Potter camp. We have a chess camp, we have theater camp, all different types of summer camps that are available basically from the end of June through the middle of August, right before school starts. And then some of our summer events, we have the Great American Backyard Campout, which is an overnight event at the Willows Park. Families are invited to come and camp out literally at the park, which is really great. It's actually a nationwide initiative that we take part of. And then we also have our summer concert. That'll be at Clemacrone Park this year, so we're really excited because the park had been recently reopened back in September, so it's really a great site for a community event, so we're really looking forward to that one. And then a new collaboration this year, our past event, Night at the Ballpark, was the one that took place right here on Enki. Last year we did not do that event. It's in partnership with Radnor Wayne Little League, and we decided we were going to try and do that every other year. So last year instead we did a wiffle ball tournament that was brought to us by a member of the community who wanted to start this event as a fundraiser for the Delaware County Special Olympics. And so he brought it in and we helped him get it going, and it was a really successful event last year. They ended up raising a good amount of money for the Special Olympics, and all of the proceeds from that event went directly to that organization. I wish I came prepared with those numbers for you, but it was really amazing last year what they were able to accomplish. So this year we're combining the two events and having our Night at the Ballpark in combination with the Wiffle Ball Classic. So it'll have the Wiffle Ball tournament. We'll still have fireworks at the end, which will be a lot of fun, and you know, just some other fun activities. We're hoping to get the Philly Fanatic. Fingers crossed, he's available. So we're still waiting to hear back on that. But those are kind of our big summer events that are coming up. Again, these events really reach a big portion of the members in our community, as well as members outside of the community, which is okay. But you know, it's a great opportunity. If anyone would like to attend, please let us know. I believe Tammy, our director, I believe she sends the information out maybe at the beginning of the year. But if you'd like us to reach out more consistently as we're approaching these specific events, we can certainly do that. And also I have, this is our summer brochure. I have a couple copies over on the table there, but this basically outlines all of our upcoming spring and summer programs. It's also available on our website, but if you just like more detailed information about what we offer, what's coming up, this is a really great picture. Online it's much better because it's more interactive. You can click on the links and everything, but there's some hard copies back there that you're more than welcome to take as well. And we put these out every season. So then we'll do a fall one, we'll do winter, spring combined, and then spring, summer combined as well. Does anyone have any questions about our programs or events? All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right, we'll do one more brief presentation as well. I believe, Nancy, you have some slides concerning an issue that was brought up a few weeks ago by a township resident, which is the issue of gas-powered weed blowing, no, I'm sorry, leaf blowing, and leaf blowers, right? Thanks.
Okay. How do I make it come back? There it is. It's back. Well, now, wait a second. Let me go back. Go back to the beginning. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Lucy Weinstein, who's a faculty member at the School of Medicine at Stony Brook, who has given me this slide deck. I reached out through a colleague, Dr. Ruth McDermott-Levy at Villanova, who will help me learn about gas leaf blowers, and voila, I got a packet of information and a ready-to-roll presentation. So it is not mine, it is a gift to us. And she just gave this talk in Ossining, New York last week. Lucy did. So why should communities restrict gas leaf blowers? There's a concern, these are two-stroke engines with no emission control. And so there's a problem of gas exhaust pollution, the problem of fine particulate pollution, and the problem of noise pollution. And I didn't know that it was significant, but it is. We have alternatives that can be used. Battery-operated ones, rakes and brooms, and mulching mowers. One of the pieces of material that Lucy sent to me was some comparisons by municipalities and by lawn and garden companies comparing the cost of using gas leaf blowers or not using, and in fact it washes out in terms of supplies and equipment, replacement costs. It's not more expensive to pay people to rake, surprisingly, over time. That surprised me. So the perceived increased efficiency and efficacy are false benefits per the data, and the perceived economic benefit is a false benefit, while the risks include equipment costs, worker health hazards, homeowner health hazards, hearing loss, decreased productivity of people nearby, increased air pollution, disrupted ecosystems, and lawsuits for landscape companies. Children are particularly vulnerable because they have a faster breathing rate, they're closer to the ground. We talked about all of this with the playing fields. It's the same set of issues. Their organs are still developing. They are outdoors more, particularly in the warmer months when gas leaf blowers are most likely to be used. Other people who are vulnerable to the downside of gas leaf blowers include landscape workers, often without protective equipment. They work long hours close to the source. They're breathing harder and more deeply. Also, senior citizens, pets, people with pulmonary or cardiac disease, and pregnant women. So let me get back. How do I get back? Let me go back one slide, previous slide. Sorry. One gas-powered leaf blower generates as much exhaust pollution in 1 hour as 17 cars traveling slowly. Cars will disperse their pollutants over long stretches of road while blowers concentrate their pollutants in one neighborhood. I mentioned that it's the two-stroke engine. It uses a gas-oil mixture that's especially toxic when compared to automobile fuel. So the gas leaf blower puts out volatile organic compounds, benzene, butadiene, acetaldehyde, formaldehyde, nitrous oxides, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and hydrocarbons, as well as particulate matter. And we know that these are actually or potentially carcinogenic products. In the United States, in 2010, they were a major contributor to all of these contaminants, accounting for 5 to 10% of total U.S. emissions of carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, nitrogen oxides, hydrocarbons, and particulate matters of 2.5 or greater, or smaller, I think. So gas leaf blowers are putting out thousands of tons of pollutants a year. They're regarded as 300 times more polluting than a car. Data coming from the EPA and from the American Lung Association. These are the products that they're putting out. Ozone is particularly dangerous to people with pulmonary disease, along with the particulate matter. The air pollutants produced by gas leaf blowers, the volatile organic compounds from burned and unburned fuel are toxic and carcinogenic, combined with nitrous oxides in the air to form ground-level ozone or smog. And as I said, we know that these are actual or potential causes of cancer or other serious health effects as per the EPA. Health effects of exhaust pollution include respiratory irritants, increased cardiovascular disease, increased cancers of breast, lung, bladder, and leukemias. And in general, gas lawn equipment, which can include powered edgers, powered pruners. I saw in the township last week, now that I'm onto this topic, people spraying mulch with backpack engine-driven mulch sprayers. I thought that cannot be good for anybody, right? Because, I mean, I haven't gotten into what's in the particulate matter, but not just the particulate matter themselves, but animal waste, dust is in this stuff. So the American Lung Association tells us this whole array of diseases that are caused or exacerbated by the ozone and the particulate pollution. And I hope these slides will be on the website of the township for your further pondering. The smaller the particle, the deeper they penetrate the lungs and the more hazardous they are to breathe. So I'm comparing the large brown thing is a grain of sand off the beach, and the particulate matter kicked off these devices are the smaller things that you see there. Possible, here it tells you. Possible particulate components include molds, fungus, spores, pollen, ova, heavy metals, animal feces, weed seeds, and fertilizer products. And about 5 pounds of particulate matter per leaf blower per hour are kicked up. It's a lot, huh? Risks of particulates include preterm birth, low birth weight, increased risk of autism. I haven't read that myself, but these slides are referenced. Decreased fertility, heart attacks, irregular heartbeat, strokes, congestive heart failure. The latter collection I know of for the heart stuff, I do know. Worse cognitive function in older adults, and various lung diseases, including cancer, asthma attacks, bronchitis, increasing severity of chronic lung disease in the elderly, and reduced life expectancy. Even low levels of particulates can increase death rates. The noise is more than just an annoyance. The noise level in decibels at the device are 100 to 115, 50 feet away, 65 to 75. There's higher levels when you have multiple people using multiple machines on the same job. This exceeds the noise safety standards that are established both by the World Health Organization and the US EPA. These are characteristics of gas blower noise. It's a pure tone, narrow frequency. There's frequent throttling up and down. It's a chronic sound, prolonged duration, carries over long distance, penetrates walls and windows. And per contrast, ambient noise in a quiet area is generally in the range of 40 to 45 decibels. These are some of the health risks of noise. We know that they generate stress, which can lead to high blood pressure, changed glucose metabolism, obesity, stroke, heart disease, sleep disruption, hearing loss, lost productivity, poor task performance, lower test scores, hyperactivity, and impaired communication. These are some of the organizations calling for leaf blower restrictions. In my packet from Dr. Weinstein, I got all the towns in Westchester County, New York. I've found on the website myself all the towns in California who have banned gas leaf blowers. It truly had not occurred to me that this was an issue, but you look under an issue and you find an issue. So here we are. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that, Nancy. That was really interesting. When the former board member who brought this information to me a few months ago, I really had no idea this was as big of an issue, and I'm giving second thoughts to blowing my leaves on my lawn with my gas blower after this presentation. Do use hearing protection.
Well,
Okay.
thank you. I thought it was excellent. And now I'm thinking we should be wearing masks at all time, right? That's amazing. I had no idea.
Thank you, Nancy. That was really interesting. Just one question. Do you know if in our township, if most of the gas leaf blowers, I see companies blowing leaves, are they mostly individually owned by homeowners or by the companies who come in?
I don't know the answer in Radnor Township, but the literature speaks to changing patterns of use. So back in the good old days when I was a child, we raked in the spring and we raked in the fall. But now with our gas leaf blowers, we do it all the time because it's easy. So, and the companies have also capitalized on our growing standard of lawn perfect beauty, you know? So they don't just wait until fall to do the leaves, they do it all year long. So there's been an increase in use with the advance of these automatic products.
I thought that was fantastic. That was really informative. I had no idea. Are there some things in your research when you looked at the townships in Westchester County and in California that are somewhere between sort of mitigating approaches that towns have taken to sort of limit the particulate matter or the noise, dampening noise, or, you know, technology, things like that, that could help us dampen some of this as recommendations from the board?
The main thing that I'm going to spend more time with this stuff, but the main thing I saw was restriction of hours. Like when do you want people to be allowed to make this racket and kick up this stuff? Is it on the weekend when everybody's outside playing? Is it during the week when nobody's home? You know, those are the kinds of discussions. But actually, hundreds and hundreds of towns all over the country have outright banned them.
I mean, I walk my dog frequently, watch the lawn services. They're not just blowing leaves. This is the standard of the industry now, is they mow your lawn, they fix up your gardens, then the guys come up with the blowers and they blow all the grass off your sidewalks and driveways with the big, you know, and they, you know, make sure everything looks nice and clean on the street, and then they pack up and go. So it seems like part of the routine. Certainly they're used a lot more than when we were kids.
Do we know what the township itself does on township property?
I don't know. That's a good question too. I'm not sure. We sometimes do have people here from the maintenance department to discuss some things. We had them in the past to discuss pesticides. It is something we could, you know, to speak with them about.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know what they do with the schools too, with the kids. You know, out with. I mean, my own son has pretty significant asthma, and you know, I didn't know that these could cause, you know, sort of a risk to asthma. I didn't know that. So thank you, Nancy.
And blowing the mulch, I can't even imagine blowing mulch out of one of those.
They were shooting it into the beds. I never had noticed before.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that again, Nancy. We're going to move on to just a couple of quick things, just a flu update for everybody. There is obviously a large decrease in the number of flu cases in the community. Influenza type B is still out in the community, and there have been some uptick in influenza type B in the last few weeks. So just, again, be aware to wash your hands well and stay protected from people who are ill. If you are ill with a high fever, coughing, and back, neck pain, etc., do see your doctor. We had mentioned earlier, Maria mentioned earlier, to call for any board members with mental health experience who might want to attend the April 18th Safe School Symposium. There is an announcement in the packet about that. And if anybody else has any other announcements before we adjourn? Mr. Wheeler?
Just have a question. Given all the news recently about mumps, is that an issue here or?
I don't believe there's been an actual case in the township. I could be mistaken. Mr. Kane's not here today to tell me that or not, but there has been a lot of talk recently about the mumps issue. It's been a relatively big college dormitory issue. Groups of people together generally spread that virus around, and the immunity probably wanes into that age range, into the 18 to 21-year-old range, as the last dose of the mumps vaccine is around 4 years of age. So there is some amount of it probably in the community. Now, it is a bit difficult, again, to quantify mumps cases. As a pediatrician, we do see a number of cases of paratitis a year, and I don't generally get mumps titers on kids simply because the more common source of paratitis in children is probably parainfluenza. And being that's a very common virus in the community, we don't quantify mumps cases. There has been calls for mumps boosters for college-age students, but as far as I know, as far as this township goes so far, there has not been a great problem with it. If there isn't any more announcements, then we will see there's no public participation, and we will call this meeting to adjourn, and we will regroup on Monday, May 21st, 2018. Please continue to contact me over email, each other over email over this smoking issue. Thank you so much for attending tonight.